There we go. Excellent. All right, now we're cooking with gas. I had this set up before, but for some reason the orientation was off. So Namoki brand has been incredibly generous to the channel. So what I figured I will do today is attempt to do a build from one of their models live. So let's see if we can get set up. Now, the reason why I want to do this is because normally I'll just record what I do and I'll do a voiceover. But I think that there is maybe potentially some things being missed at point in time when I'm adding it after the fact rather than getting my live kind of impressions of it when I'm doing it as I go along. So I figured I'd give doing a live a chance, see if we can get this build done. We'll be cracking at it for about an hour, and I want to show you guys what's included with the kits that they have for you when you're buying from Namoki, and that one of the things is the tools, of course. But before we do that, wristwatch check. This I'm wearing a Dad Mod watch. This is a prototype for something that he is still currently working on. So he does a lot of mods. He messes around with a lot with Namoki. So I guess I have this on for good luck as I try to do this build. So let's see how things go. So I have my own tool set that I normally go off of, but I wanted them to send me their set. And just basically what I want to utilize is anything that they provided rather than me going into my own supply. Because at the end of the day, if you are purchasing one of their mod kits and one of their tool sets to go with it, then you guys are going to be starting off with just what they provide here, right? So it wouldn't be fair if I utilize some of the things that I have. So pretty standard set, but at the end of the day, they're giving you a lot of things and they're covering a lot of grounds. So we have screwdrivers here, we have hand removal tools here, tweezers, we have a dial guard, nice Bergeron dial guard, case back remover. They're even giving you some finger cots, which we'll be using today, of course, like I said. Something for getting a closer look when you're setting the hands. I normally don't use this, I eyeball it, but it's nice that they include it. A blower, of course, case holder, right? So there's some Rodico in here to do any of your dial cleaning or holding the hands is what I like to use Rodico for. And we'll get into that. But this is a case holder. I believe you could also use this as a movement holder. I don't normally do that. I normally just use like my little pads, which I have somewhere on the side here. Let me just see if I can find them. I use something like this instead to put the movement on when I'm doing the modification. But I'm not going to be using that today because again, I want to use what was standard to give it to me. Now, a lot of people are probably just going to lay the movement down flat on their pad. Hopefully, you have something like this just to put that on. But like, let's just see how it goes. We have some branding in here, some cards, some Namoki stuff. Very, very appreciative to Namoki. Thank you so much, guys, for providing this stuff so like that I could do things like this. And I'm probably going to make a video of this. I'll probably do like a talk over on this just for a long form, but I figured I'd give doing a live a chance. So let me just create some space. Let me get all of the pieces. So that was the tool set that was included. These are parts, but these were all that was all of the tool set that was included. And you're getting a large range here, so it's really, really nice. Just to give you guys an idea of what this standard tool set that was given to me versus what I carry with me and I have developed over time. So you'll see a little bit more of an array of different things. And a lot of the stuff that the bigger stuff that is going to be on the outside of my case is not there. But you can see that you're getting a lot of tools. Everything that you need, I think, that necessary to do the build is going to be there. So that's fine and dandy. So let's just set things up here. So let's look at some of the parts. This is how everything was nicely packaged. I believe this is the bracelet. This is going to be like the movement and everything else. And let's just see. Okay. So What do we have in here? We have some more Namoki things, some more appreciation. That's cool. Let me do my little Namoki branding in the background just to show the appreciation of the company. Okay, so we have a nice bracelet in here, and I've done a review on their watches before, and they have phenomenal finishing on their parts. They have really good, everything that they give you is going to be very nice as far as standards go. So I know and I'm expecting this to go seamlessly for the build, and I'm pretty confident that we're not going to run into any issues. Plus, we've seen a lot of videos with Namoki brand. Now, this I believe is the case. Yeah, so this is the casing. Okay. This is the casing. It's going to be a sapphire sandwich at this point. So the crystals are already installed. That's going to make it a lot easier for anyone who wants to, do their modifications. It's going to make it a lot simpler not having to press that crystal inside. Do think we're going to have to cut the stem here. Let me just remove this screw down crown and take a look. Well, obviously I don't see it coming through here. So yeah, here we go. So we are going to have to install the stem to the crown, which is going to be a thing, which is fine. We'll keep that to the side. And again, I'm going to only utilize what was given to me by Namoki brand. I'm gonna do my best not to pull in any of my normal stuff that I use just to make things easier for myself on a normal cape base, because what I'm trying to simulate here is you guys getting the parts in, and maybe this is your first time doing a mod and you don't have all of those things. So let's move all of that stuff to the side and start taking out the actual parts. So we have the casing here, and we have some more parts in here, which I would guess is everything else. The movement, the dial, it's not a crazy amount of things that we have to worry about here. So here's the dial, nicely packaged. Got a black dial on there. Here are the hands. Okay, so that's one set. And here is the movement, which we can see. And whenever you purchase a movement, normally it comes with a stem. So for you to cut, but okay, so we have another stem here, which this looks like it was pre-cut. So that should make things a little easier on us. Let me just zoom in to make things a little bit more easier for you guys to see. And we might be able to even use this as a movement stabilizer, right? Like kind of like how we have the pad here. It's not going to be as soft, but I'm just trying to think outside the box of how I would go about this. But again, we have a stem here that looks like it was pre-cut, which is nice because that's the trickiest part probably of doing the build aside from the second hand, is cutting that stem correctly, not cutting too much material, and making sure that that's the correct size when it functions with the crown meeting the case. Now, I opened up all of the parts here. We have everything we need to do the build. And what I can say off the bat is, let me just look at the tools again just to make sure I don't shoot myself in the foot. Okay, so really nice that they included the stem already cut. So that's going to make things easier as far as that's concerned. But one thing I'm noticing is I'm only getting one set of hands here with the whole packaging, and maybe not so much the hour in the minute hand, but the second hand. One critique that I would say off the bat is they should probably include a second hand, because when somebody doing this for the first time, chances are they're going to bend that because it's terribly difficult and frustrating to put on, and you probably will see a little bit of that today because I am by no means an expert or a watchmaker. Um, and it does sometimes it goes on right away, sometimes it takes me a little bit. So here's the dial. Okay, so this is nice. This is going to be a little bit different than my other modification videos, in that we are getting additional dial feet here, and we're going to have to cut and shave that down. Now, I'm seeing a couple of things, and I'm being very critique about this, and I'm being very specific off the bat. So a couple of things I didn't see is that additional second hand that I would like to see when doing the mod, just so like that, if this is somebody's first time, would be awesome to include. I'm not seeing something to adhere this stem to the crown. as far as like a thread lock or a cement glue, which is this. So that's something that I'm going to have to add to the equation. I use hypo cement to connect the two. Um, what else could I say? And maybe like just something to hold the actual movement when you're messing with it. And again, we're looking in the lens of somebody doing this for the first time. So that's the only things that I would critique before we get started here. We are going to have to clip these off and shave them down if we want to have a nice flush look. And I don't think that I see any of the tools included for something like that as well. So that would probably be also another critique that I would give. Yeah, there's nothing here that I see to clip it. So I'm almost going to be forced to use things that weren't included with the packaging. I mean, with the tool set, just to make sure it's completely done. But anyhow, we're already 10 minutes in and we haven't done anything. But I wanted to explain exactly what opening everything up felt like and everything that was included in the tools. It did include a really nice amount of tools over here, but I'm just calling out some of the things that I could see could be added to those tool sets just to make this a little bit more seamless. So let me just grab the couple of things that I think that I'll need, which again, thread lock, you're definitely going to need that to lock in the stem. That's fine. That's already set to go. I'm going to also need something to clip the the little feet. So I gotta kind of find that because I didn't think about that prior. Okay, I got it. This thing is huge. Oh no, you know what? As a matter of fact, I have a better small one here. Okay, so this is what I use to clip the feet on the back of the dial, right? And then I have something that I use to shave down the little bumps. Let me see if I can find that as well. Give me 1 second. Bu- 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 bum. Hmm, I'm not sure where I. Oh, maybe that's no. It's not in my tool set. Uh, no. Oh, you know what? I also so if you guys don't have that tool, a nail clipper would work as well, right? We could always use a nail clipper to cut those little feet off. I just don't see something that I use to shave down the back of those little dial feet. Uh, okay. Anyway, let's get started. So, first thing is first, finger cuts. That is something you want to do to make sure you're not transferring any of your human oils onto the movement. So, before even messing around with the movement at all, um, get those covered. I like to do 3 fingers. Essentially, you want to cover anything or any fingers that you would be using to make contact with the movement. And it's pretty nice that they gave us black ones here. I usually use white ones just so I could see like how dirty they get. I will reuse the white ones, but if they get real dirty, then I could kind of see it. But the black ones are cool too. So I cover 3 fingers when I'm doing this. Mm. Let me know if you guys are hearing me too great on the audio. I know we got a couple people in here, and let me see chat. Oh, okay. Let me pull up. I'm sorry. Sorry about the chat guy. Awesome. How far along are we? So I really just, Dalton, I really just explained what I found in the packaging. It sound good. Okay, cool. I really just explained what I found in the packaging. I wanted to see if Namoki is supplying us with every single thing that I thought, in my opinion, people would need. The tools are pretty impressive with what they included. So that is all fine and dandy. The only things that I saw that were not included that I would have liked to have seen included was some grip tight on the threads, something to adhere um, the stem to the crown, maybe possibly like a movement pad, like a movement holder type of thing. Hang on, I gotta keep clicking this screen so I can see chat. But I think we could get pretty far along without it. And a lot of household things could be used in order for you to get. a little bit further. So I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. Hang on, guys. I'm just messing with. I'm trying to see if I. There we go. Check just keeps randomly disappearing. Okay, cool. So I got myself a little nail filer for the back of the dial. After we clip off the proper feet on here, you want to shave it down. This way it's flush for the ones that you're not going to use. So that's another thing that I didn't see included with the tools that we are going to add there. And all right, so let's get started. First thing is first, we're gonna take a look at the movement. Now, normally I would test the movement, but I'm not gonna do that here. Um, that is the first step probably before even doing anything is you want to make sure that that movement is running at a proper time. And again, we do have an additional stem. Every movement comes with a stem, but they have been thoughtful enough to include a cut stem, so that's pretty cool. It seems like that I'm not going to run into any issue, and that's going to save us a little bit of time here. And if they're already including that in their kits, then I'm not going to go ahead and waste any time doing that. But you know what? We're going to take our time here. We're going to take our time. If I have to do a part two to this, then I have to do a part two. Let me just make sure chat is good. You guys, if you ask me any questions, just I'll be checking it periodically. Just give me some time to try and catch up. Now, when I'm doing this, I normally have stuff to cover the dial and cover the movement as I'm switching in between things. But one step that we're going to talk about here when we're starting off with the movement, which is our starting point, is how we hold the movement, right? So when we're taking it out and everything is very gentle, this is a very robust movement, but because we have it exposed, there's no obviously casing on it, there's nothing protecting it. Um, we have to be mindful of how we're holding it. So here's how I recommend to hold it. Right now, I've grabbed it by the temporary stem and crown, which is going to help us just set everything and get everything going. But you only want to hold the movement on the sides. Okay, there is the back of it. We have obviously everything back here. Now this isn't so fragile. The rotor is not fragile, but this piece is the where we want to stay away from, right? And if you start grabbing the movement like this, chances are that rotor will move out of the way, and then you'll grab that balance wheel, which will throw everything out of whack. So when we're handling the movement, we're only handling it from the sides at all times. Now, putting it down, just make sure you have something that's somewhat soft underneath it, and you should be fine with handling it straight on. Again, I normally have these pads that I set it on, but I'm not going to be using anything that's not included with what they gave me. So that is that. Now, give it a good wind, and I do recommend testing the movement before you go ahead and install everything, obviously, but for sake of just film here, we're not going to be testing it because there's so many things up in the way. So we're going to turn that, give it a nice little wind, turn the movement over. I just want to see that it's running. I have a lot of faith that this is running at a fair time. If not, I'm cool with taking it back apart and regulating. But for now, I see that the movement is running, which is good. Another test that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that date wheel turns over. Now, I don't know, and you won't know um, where that movement is standing for the date wheel complication, right? So you don't want to pull it from the first position and start twisting it around because chances are, if it is by the wrong timing, then you can mess up the movement itself. Next time around, we're all gonna have to we want to have what you're working on so we Dalton, so it could be like an actual class, right? So yeah, I gave it a good little spin. Let me just make sure. Okay, good. I gave it a good little wind, right? So we're not going to pull it to the first position. We're going to skip the first position. We're going to pull it out to the second, and then we're just going to move this around and wait for that date wheel to turn. And as you see, so okay, this is kind of cool because you guys can see the actual complication turning as I turn the hands around. And for those for you to understand that not changing this date wheel between 3 a.m. and I believe it is 4, is it no, excuse me, it's 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. that you don't want to change the time. And this is the complication that moves the date wheel. So if you do it at that time, this is plastic on an NH35. It's metal in some of the the Swiss made movements. So it's a little bit more sturdier, but either way, you do compromise it to break, and you don't want to do that. So you'll see that moving around as you see in this corner here, and you'll actually see that bite onto the date wheel, right? And then you're going to have it turn over ever so gently. Or am I turning this the wrong way? I'm definitely turning this the wrong way. Learning professional, ladies and gentlemen. The learning professional. Hang on one second here. Make sure you always hold it from the sides. Okay. Let's get this date wheel to change sometime today. Hold on. There we go. So there we go. It just bit onto the date wheel groove, and now it's turning over. It's turning over. Boom. So now I know that's 12, and I know that that date wheel function is working. That's about all that I want to do right now, just to do some preliminary tests for the movement. Now we want to remove this temporary stem and crown, and we want to get that out of here. Now, one thing I can say, even before we do that, maybe we want to place the we want to place the dial down first, right? So we tested that. Let's pretend like we put that on a time reader. That's good. We're going to close that back up to make sure no dust gets to it. And that's the most important thing, guys. Keeping this movement closed at all times when you're not messing around or you're not using it is probably the most important thing. Now we have the dial feet. Um, these are little feet here that there are two. There's one on one side, one on the other that you have to clip off. Okay, and you have to make sure that you clip off the right one. And the way that I like to do it is like anything else when we're cutting something that is pretty much a permanent thing. You measure twice and you cut once, right? So we know that this movement is positioned right side up, right? Because we have the crown here. So before we do anything, we have the orientation. What are those raised bubbles on the back? Oh, so those I believe belong to just the stuff on that's applied on the dial. So everything that is applied on here, I think, is being like soldered or that's how it's secured. It's glued on there. So I think that's why you see a bunch of different raised things on the back of it. But you don't have to concern yourself with that. That doesn't obstruct anything for your build, Dalton. We're just concerned about the dial feet here, and then we want to get things flush because if I just clip this, it'll be a little nub, and then the dial won't sit flat. And then when I put the movement inside of the watch, it may push back and it'll remove the hands and it'll cause a disaster. So making sure that that's flush is pretty important. So that's a good question, though. That's a good question about the other bubbles on the back. I believe I'm a learning professional. Remember, I believe that that is to everything that's applied onto the dial on the other side. But anyway, um, now that we have the orientation of the movement, we have the dial. Now I'm doing this as if this is my first time, yeah, because this may be the first time for a lot of people. Now, let me just see if I can angle this a little more. Okay, so on the movement itself, it has holes to it that are for those dial feet, yeah, and I want to make sure the orientation of the dial is right side up. Here's a dial hole here, and here's a dial hole here. And what we need to do is we need to just match that up, right? To where we want this dial to be. So I can tell on this top corner here, I want to make sure you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Hang on, let me get the angle. I would never really handle it like this, guys, but I want you to be able to see what I'm talking about. So here's how I say when I'm saying I'm measuring it. There's a dial hole here. I'm making sure that, okay, this top one matches to that dial hole, so I have to snip this one, right? Now, I don't go to the other side and try to figure out the other side yet, right? I just know that I need this top foot here, so let me just clip that bottom one for now, right? And again, we're going to check it twice. I'm going to do it again because I have clipped the wrong one before, and then I had to end up gluing this dial foot back onto the dial, which you really want to solder it, but I don't have all that fancy schmancy stuff. So I'm preventing a big headache for you guys, and you can't just use one because you risk the chance of the dial sliding when you have a bump on your watch. So this is a pretty important step, and you want to take your time. So I'm measuring it out again. this is the orientation. My date wheel is at the 3 o'clock, and let me get rid of this. My date wheel is at the 3 o'clock, right? And therefore, there's 2 feet here. So it's going to be this top one, which would be the correct one. And I have to get rid of that bottom one. Cool. So let me just address that now. And then just to keep to what I was saying, let's cover that movement. Okay. And we want to keep the top one here. So we're clipping the bottom one there. So now you can get a regular, I have these clippers that get pretty flush to the dial as much as possible. You could use regular clippers if you don't have such a fancy thing. And what I like to do is instead of getting to it and clipping it like that, like just pressing it, which would be the easiest thing to do, I like to do like a little wiggle. And let me just check my orientation because guys, I'm talking and I'm showing you, and I don't want to clip the wrong one while I'm trying to show you this. Okay, so we need the top one. We're clipping the bottom one. Cool. The closest one to the date wheel. So the technique that I've developed is I'll grab onto this foot, yeah, and then I'll just give it a wiggle back and forth very gently. Just hold on to it. You don't have to press the clippers in and snip it. And I'll show you why in a second when it comes off. Boom. It just broke off, right? On its own. And all I did was I held it with these clippers and I just rocked it back and forth because this is a very thin piece of metal, and just by that alone it's going to break. And the reason why I did that is because I found that instead of clipping that little piece, which you could see how small that piece is and how thick these clippers are, you're going to have more material on the dial than you would if you did it that way. And let me see if I can get a focus here. You can kind of see how close it is to the dial, the back of the dial, and that's pretty flush. I don't even know if there's any material even sticking up. Okay, that was a clean break. There's actually no material even behind it. But let's pretend that there were, right? Because that's not going to happen every time. That's kind of lucky. But we're pretty much done with that. And I even keep these little pieces sometimes because for the reason I said, if I clip the wrong one, I'll try to glue it. And don't do that. Don't do that. Using glue anywhere in a watch on the inside is a no-no. I know I obviously make sure that the glue is dry. I go about it the way I want to go about it, but if you make that mistake, you're better off soldering it. But let's say that this wasn't flush, and I'll be able to test if this is really actually flush. Yeah, this is actually good money. This is actually super flush. So I don't even have to do it, and I don't want to do it. But if this was a little bit of a nub here after breaking off, and I felt something, then I would just file it down, right? And again, I'm not going to do that because that creates material that is compromising for the movement. So if you don't have to, like, don't do it. But and then I would just hit it with a blower to get that material away from my desk. And you never want to do this and blow towards your stuff. Like I have a bunch of stuff over here. I have the movement. I have all my tools. I rather blow it off the desk, almost like you're cleaning your table at a restaurant. You just wipe it on the floor real quick. But I blow downwards and I get that material off. So now we got that one side done. And we're going super slow here. I hope that you guys are okay with it. Ask questions as we go along. I will do my best to read chat. Space G, I think you popped in, buddy. I did see you. Um, Megazoid's in the building. That's actually a fantastic question. So dumb question. Assuming you wanted to create a destro, can you just flip the dial? Um, can you just flip the dial? Are the alignments the same? No, I don't think, like, if you wanted to do like what, like an upside down type of thing, I don't think that it's gonna line up the same way. I think that they are specifically in a position where you couldn't just flip it around. I think that's what you mean. Just do it like an upside down type of thing, but I don't think that that would be the case. All right, so going back, we know that we cut the correct dial here. Hopes and prayers. Yeah, so that side is done. Cool. And again, you guys can see how I'm handling the dial as well. I'm not doing this. I'm always grabbing it from its sides, just like how I'm doing with the movement. You're just creating more smudges and you're creating more work. And the more you have to clean the dial later on, the chances are you'll knock off one of the applied stuff. So we're at the other side here. And be careful, guys, when you're lining this up. That's another thing too. When you're lining this up, you obviously have the feet here. Hold on, let me back the camera. You obviously have the feet here, so you have to be careful not to try to mess around with that and then scratch the material on the actual date wheel, right? Because then you'll scratch one of the numbers and that'll be no good. Sorry if the camera's a little blurry. I don't know why it's not focusing that well, but it is what it is. All right, so now we have to find the second hole, right? We have the one up here, we have one down here. So, no, that's worse. You have one down there, and that dial hole is over here. So now I know that, okay, in the correct orientation, right? Boom. I'm going to need the one that is in the bottom. So cool. I got to clip the one that's on top. So it's just the opposite, right? So hang on one second. Let me just double check that. The last thing I need to do is clip the wrong one, like I said. Listen, always check twice, man. It's all right. Take your time. That's the biggest thing I could say, man, when you're doing these mods, when you're doing these builds, whatever it is you're doing, you know, take your sweet candy time, man, because a mistake. Yes, I'm clipping the top one. Cool. So let's do that. Let's do this. Let's cover the movement for now. And Dalton ensure I'm looking at the alignment of the piece you cut off. I think it may work. I'm looking at the alignment of the piece you cut off. I think it may work. Yeah, it may. It may. I've never tried that, to be honest with you. So maybe if you wanted to do an upside down thing, you could. If that's what you wanted to do, I don't know why you really would, but if you wanted a wacky kind of look to it, then I don't see why not. I would give it a shot. If you do give it a shot, send me some images of it. All right, so let's clip this off already. Cover the movement. We're getting rid of the top one. Hang on. I just want to make sure. I'm like paranoid now. I'm like paranoid, dude. All right, that's I gotta clip the top one. All right, cool. Top one, because you know what it is when you're flipping it back over, it messes with your head. And obviously, I have a lot more concentration when I'm not doing this live, you know, and it'll be kind of embarrassing. So again, I'm to remove the correct one. Hopefully, I'm using this clipper now. I could just force it down and clip it off, but instead I'm gonna grab onto it and we're gonna just do a little rock back and forth. That's just something that I don't know if I've seen that, man. I've adopted so many different things in the past. I don't know if I've seen it somewhere or if it's something I developed on my own. But let's see what we got here. So we clip that off. Make sure chat is good. You guys didn't ask me anything. Not upside down, but to create a version for a righty. So the date is yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I guess that would work. Yeah, you could just okay. I see what you're saying now. You would just clip the other feet to make it. Yeah, I don't see why not. Right? I mean, the only problem is like you couldn't use this movement for that. You know what I mean? Because the date wheel is orientated for it to show on the right, right? So if you flip the date wheel here, your numbers are going to be upside down. That's the only thing that I would see you would run into unless you're not looking to showcase the date wheel. So let's see what we got. All right, so this one's a little bit nubby. The other one was flush. This one, actually, you know what? That's not too bad. All right, so let's pretend like that one was a little bit nubby, right? So I just want to go over it with you guys. So I would just take this, I'd hold this dial at its ends very gently. I'm not applying a whole lot of pressure. We don't want to crack anything. We don't want to mess with the applied indices, but let's pretend like we're shaving this down, right? I'm going to go through this as if I go through it, right? I shave it down. Cool. I have some material. Now, this is where Radical comes into play for the first time for me. You can hit it with the blower first, obviously, get rid of the first loose material. But the greatest cleaner for your movement, and they've given you a small amount of Rodico. You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot. Uh, Rodico goes a very long way. I can use the same Rodico piece for a lot of different months. Normally, I'll just switch it out. I'll have two pieces of Rodico going. Like, just to give you an example, I have two things of Rodico going. One has been really, really old, and I'll use that to clean like shrapnel and stuff like that. And one is like fairly new, so I'll use one to pick up hands and stuff like that. But those two pieces that I just showed you have been in my thing for a very long time, and Rodical lasts a very, very good amount of time. So the fact that they only gave you this much isn't disparaging, and it will go a long way, especially if it's just for this one build. And they package the crap out of it, which is good because, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that it is a nice, clean piece that you're getting. Of course, I have gloves on, so this will not be easy for me to open. Let me ask. Let me bother my beautiful wife to see if she'll help a player out. Can you open this for me, babe, please? She's shaking her head no. As she's opening that out, again, we have those pieces that we shredded there. We want to open the Rodico. We'll just use this as an example for now. I was trying to just use whatever they got there, but and then we're just dabbing the extra material that's there, right? Dabbing that, making sure we get everything off. So those two dial feet now are two dial feet. Them two dial feet are off. They're off. They're flush. Um, Everything is good on that end. So now we're flipping this around, right? Taking a look at our dial. Everything is good. So now we're just going to place that on there. Now, one thing that you can use is the back of this case just to elevate a little bit, and it is flush, so you're fine with that balance wheel. It shouldn't make contact because it is inward, but just make sure that you clean all the dust off the back of this, as I almost forgot, and that's not going to come off. So I'm going to use some Rodico just to clean the back of this real quick. Being mindful of dust, being mind as much as you can. Obviously we're not watchmakers, so we do the best we can. So that's going to help elevate and bring it closer to you. Thank you, honey. I just want to get this in focus. Okay, that's as good as it's going to get, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry if it's not that clear on your end, but take the dial, and you want to find those holes and line it up nice and easy. Now, one thing that'll be a giveaway for you is obviously this is the 3 o'clock date wheel aperture. So if you have that in place, then you should be able to find that part first. Make sure the other side is lined up, and then it should just not snap into place, but it'll be coaxed down into it. Now, let me just see. I'm usually a hell of a lot closer to it. Now, okay, so this is good because this often happens to me, and I don't get to say this on the playback. Sometimes the dial feet will not, they easily bend, yeah? So sometimes the dial foot will be a little off, and you have to take it off and you have to readjust it closer to the hole. I don't think that that's the case here, but it is something that I'm remember as I'm doing this step by step with you guys live. So that's good. So I see the little hole there. Okay, so that went in. Now we're good to go, right? And I'm always handling this on the sides of the movement. I'm not handling it from uh, from the front and back. That's key. I always thought movements were different for Astro. Now I think they just flip the dial upside down. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so all right. So at this point, right, the dial feet have gone into the movement. Now, I just told you that you don't want to do any of this, but you can at the very edge where this bumper is on the movement, you can press down there because you don't have anything super serious. You just have to stay away from that balance wheel, right? And the one dial foot is here where more of the keyless work and the barrel stuff are. So you can press down there to make sure that that's already in the movement. That's fine. And then the other foot is over here, which is close to the date wheel there. But I'm just going to, look, here is the balance wheel. I'm going to be pressing from here. right? So this is where you could get into trouble if you're building this for your first time and you just do one of these and you press down on the balance wheel, throwing it all out of whack. Everything is on the edging that you want to press, right? So that's where one foot is, that's where the other foot is, and there you go. The dial is secured onto here. Now there's a bunch of dust on the dial we're gonna have to address. Um, One thing I can say is go ahead and check that date wheel again. Once you get the dial on there, make sure that that is turning over pretty well. And oh man, I really wish this could be clearer. Hang on one second. Let me try to angle it like this. Ah, there we go. Sorry, guys. All right, so that's a little better. I think it's a little clearer now. It's got to be an angle for me, but it is what it is. So the dial is on there, like I said. Pull it out 2 clicks. Start turning it over, and I think this is the correct way. As I got it wrong before. We'll find out. Learning professional, guys. I know what I know, and I learned the rest. I think it's the other way I got to turn it. Okay. Yeah. So there we go. So we're getting to the point now where we have to put the hands on after the dial is on, right? And obviously, this date wheel is going to turn, so there's no obstruction from the movement in the dial after we place it on. We'll do another test just in case. And da, 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 there we go. Okay, so what that means, it's 12 a.m., right? So that's how we know where we're going to put the hands. But at this point is where I give the dial its first clean. And I'm going to use, again, the blower that I was given from Namoki Mods is what I'm going to use. The difference between the blower of what they provide and what I use is mine has this, which brings you a lot closer without your hand having to be so close. And it's going to be more air coming through this tube here, right? So I'm going to utilize whatever they gave me. So it is what it is, but it's a little bit harder for me to use, but that's all right. So give it a nice little blow. Check in your lighting to make sure everything is kosher. That is pretty good. Take your time. We're going to speed through this. I mean, speed through this. It's 41 minutes, and I'm explaining everything, but I'm not going to make sure that I get every little tiny speck of dust off here. I'm just going to continue. But when you do this, obviously make sure that you're taking your time and you're looking at it in different lighting and you're trying different angles before you case anything up, because there's nothing more aggravating than you casing this and then finding out that there's dust and you have to take it all back apart. So we have our very, very clean little tiny piece of Rodico. I'll go ahead and start just shaping that to how I want to. It does stick to your gloves, so be careful of that. This is a super fresh piece as well, so hang on one second. Okay, so we just shaped this kind of like a pointer, which is how I utilize it for cleaning the dial and also picking up the dial hands, as you guys will see soon. When cleaning the dial, even with Rodico, like that automatic is printed on the dial. I don't go directly over the text. I stay away from that. I want to make sure that I don't, distort anything like that. Anything applied though, even this logo, that'll be fine. Radical is an amazing tool in watchmaking. It's very, very versatile. Like I said before, it lasts a long time. So take your time cleaning things out. Utilize the Rodico to lift off any dust that doesn't get blown off, right? And then let's push this to the side. Okay, so Rodico to the side. All right, so now we've got hands that we're going to put on this, right? So I don't know how crazy you are about getting the hands at the 12 o'clock. Okay, hold on. I'm committing a cardinal sin. Let me get some tweezers and get this material out of the way. I'm kind of being a little sloppy because you don't want these little metal pieces going into the movement, scratching. Like you really want to keep a clean area. Okay, these are the hands. That. Okay, so now we're up to the hands. Again, this is what I was going to say. I don't know how important it is for you to get the date wheel and the hands exactly at the 12 o'clock to turn over. It's kind of difficult to get it exact, right? I almost want to say that, I mean, I don't think that I've ever had one go completely exact, but what I can say is for me, what's tolerable or what's acceptable rather is -5 +5 of 12 a.m. So when you're at the position of the changing the hands, moving the hands or whatever, and you get it to turn over, you want to slow down. Now, I was moving through, right? The second I see that this complication is responding, I'm going to slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. And even as it gets even closer, the closer it gets, the slower I get. And that's how I get as close as I can, either ±5 for 12 a.m. So the second that turns over, and you can take your time, boom. So that just turned over, right? So that means it's ready to receive some of the hands. So I'm going to place that down. Sometimes I'll remove the stem at this point. The reason for that is that as I'm trying to put the hands on, you may knock the crown and the stem, obviously effectively changing that. But for this, we're just going to leave it on there for now. Um, and we're just going to start with the actual hands. So I need something to help me open this up at this point. And let me just check chat, make sure you guys are good. I appreciate you doing this video, Skylar. Good to know how to do this and how I'm gonna be spending my money this fall. Yeah, man, this is a fun wintertime project when things get cold and you're bunkered down, and everybody's kind of just in there watching a crazy amount of seasons of shows and stuff like that. This is a cool little project. These are taped down, and I'm even gonna give you guys game on how I open these. So these hands are obviously super fragile, and I you can pull it apart, but you will risk the hands falling out and kind of going all over the place. What I like to do is I'll just stick one of the tools in the slots that it has here. I don't know if this is going to pick up on camera, but there's a little slot here on the side, and I'll just stick this tool in here and just give it a twist to open it up, and that'll gently, gently, gently do what you need it to. And I got to be careful because these are actually hand removers and they're not the thickest pieces of metal. So I probably don't want to bend these and break them myself. You know what? Let's do this and be a little bit smarter. Excuse me. It'll be a little bit smarter than me. Excuse me. To use a case back remover. So I have a good amount of firm on here. I push up. Now I can just gently place this down, and here are the hands, right? So they stay into place. They're all ready for me to go. And obviously, we're going to start with the hour hand. Now, okay, picking up the hands. This part is pretty important. Up until this part, things are a little bit more forgivable, right? On the dial feet and stuff like that, and on the dial itself. The movement is forgivable except for that balance wheel as I keep beating you over the head for, and I just moved the crown, so I'm gonna have to reset that day. But this part is very fragile. The hands, especially the second hands, this is where it matters. And you do have tweezers here, which you'll be tempted rather to pick this hour hand up with the tweezer. The problem with that is effectively metal on metal, and now you'll probably scratch the hell out of this, especially if it's your first time. And once you get the hands on there, you'll finally be happy, and then you'll notice in the glare this will have a whole bunch of chewed up um, marks on it from just handling it that way. You can, if you're more experienced, grab the hands from the sides, right? I've seen that done before, and then place them. I don't like even doing that myself because that I could still slip, and I find it a lot more effective and easier to just use radical, right? So I get it into the shape that I want it, right? You'll remember this from kindergarten, making the worm, right? So we get this into kind of like a little bit of a stick form, and then I'm grabbing the very, very end of the hour hand, And then that is how I'm going to guide that to the movement, and then use one of these hand pushers to secure that. And this is the first time I'm looking at them, so I'm looking for the right ones here. I believe it is that one. I usually have everything set to go with my tool set, so bear with me, guys. Well, you should have been prepared before you did this. That's true. That is true. But I wasn't. Okay, I believe that's the hour, that's the minute, and the seconds is another one. Okay, so again, gotta reset this because I moved it around just to show you guys that. But that is something that I definitely recommend. Use the Rodico to do this, right? And I'm not applying a lot of pressure here. And I'm also not going to push it down right here in the middle of it because that's where the loom is applied. And you don't want the Rodico to pick up loom material, right? And it probably won't unless you have to pick it up a hell of a lot, but why take the risk? So now that rodicle is going to hold that hour hand. Get these hands out of your way. Don't pick this up and keep the hands here, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to be so fixated on getting the hand on here that you're going to do one of these. And I'm telling you right now, once you bend the hands, they're done. You're not getting it back on there. Okay. So again, I could be using the back of this to elevate it a little bit more, but I think I feel more comfortable it being on a flat surface. So I'm holding the hour hand now, and this is a fresh piece of Rodico, so it's actually holding pretty well. And we're gonna get this on there again. Just looking for making sure this is the right. I believe this is the right size. I'm a lefty, so I feel more comfortable holding the hand on my right and pushing down with my left, right? So I'll first just get this hooked onto here. I don't really concern myself with it being super, super straight because you can adjust if you get it on here gently. And then I'll just gently pull that rodicle away, right? Now, that hand's going to sit there, and they do supply you, Namoki, with this, which is awesome to use because this is wood, right? So it's softer than everything else on this dial. And that means that, like I said, not using the metal tweezer, but instead of wood to adjust, you're not going to worry about scratching stuff going there. So I'm going to make sure that this is on very, very, very straight. And I'm going to do my little adjustments here. And sometimes I have to mess around with it. And I'm usually a hell of a lot closer to the dial when I do this. I'm in a computer chair and I'm able to drop down closer, but because I'm looking at the camera too, and making sure you guys can see what's going on here. Um, we're not doing that today. Let's back this up. Okay. And take your time lining this up. This is going to matter on how straight those hour that hour hand and the hour markers are going to match up. And I know that's pretty important for everybody. So this is something where this whole process, you're taking your time. This whole process is not to be rushed. And okay, this is gonna pose a little bit of a challenge for me because I'm like miles away from this movement compared to what I would be normally. So just bear with me. I'm usually right up on this thing. So when you're pressing down, one thing that's important is that when I press down, one thing I do is right before I press down, I stop. And that's because I want to make sure I'm not pressing down in an angle like this. When I come down on this thing, I should be like this. And the pressure should be pretty much the amount of a water bottle sitting on top of a table type of pressure. So if you imagine if you put a water bottle on the back of this, pressing it down, that's about all you're going to need. I need a drink of water here pretty soon. All right, so let's just line this up. All right, I'm going to make sure this is straight, and that moved out of the way dramatically. So hang on one second, guys. Let's just get this on here. Press that down. And I'm telling you, I'm doing this even lighter than what I explained. I don't use a lot of pressure at all. And now we have raised indices, so we have to be mindful that we don't press this hour hand down too much. You don't want this hour hand to be fouling these raised indices, right? Because then when I twist it, obviously that's going to cause resistance and that's going to be an issue. Now, let me just make sure that this is sitting completely straight, which it looks like it is as I eyeball this. Yeah, that should be good money. All right, so one thing that I like to do as a test is we'll swing this around, right? Holding it, of course, on the sides as always. As we swing this around, that 23 should obviously change. If I got that on straight, it should change to 24. Yeah, once it gets up to the 12, right? And this may not be perfect, and I would sit here and make it perfect for you guys, but I want you just to get the idea, and I could always go back and adjust, right? So let's get the mitted hand. Now, again, when you're done setting that, you're turning it to the side, right? And they give you a tool for you to get a closer look and making sure that that hand, let me get a tool to show you guys. You're making sure that the hand is not fouling these raise hour markers, minutes, whatever. You want to make sure that that's not fouling before you do that turn, right? Because then it's going to snap, it's going to cause tension on the pinion. It's just going to give you a big headache, and that's we want to avoid destroying any hands, especially when we're only given one set of hands. And listen, not the end of the day. If you end up destroying the hands, there are a whole bunch of different NH35 hands that you guys can purchase and replace. You know, it is more money, so not exactly ideal, but hey, it's not like you're done for. So going back to the hands now, wow, and that's exactly why you want to be careful. Yep, yes, sir. Okay, that wasn't the end of the world because the second hand is still there, but that just goes to show you why you want to be very careful. Now I'm going to kind of handle this in a way that I don't want you guys to handle this, but I'm comfortable in doing that. Um, let's get the right presser here. That's for the okay. So I'm comfortable with my left. So again, same principles apply. Grabbing that at the end, placing it down in the center. The second hand is going to be super fun from this distance. Okay, so this one is a little bit tighter of a fit. So you have to make sure that you're lining it up before you press it down. The hour hand is the most forgiving hand of them all. Okay. The second hand is the least forgiving, and then this one's going to. So it's almost like you're doing different levels to it naturally, and that just stuck to this, so that's not going to work. I'm going to back that out very gently. And it's good that all these things are coming up, right? It's good that I'm not just flying through this because this stuff is not easy. Now this is sticking into the Rodico, so I'm gonna have to make sure that I do line this up correctly and I'm gently backing it out. But these are all good things. These are things that are gonna happen. This may take time, even though it's not the second hand, and it's gonna take me a little bit longer because I'm so far away from the movement. Um, and that's fine. Line this up, press it down, make sure that the tool is sitting straight. I just want to get it like pretty much on there, and then I can pretty much adjust as I go. No, that's not going to work. Let's see. Mm-mm-mm. And I'll use the hand press to also adjust things too, because that's a plastic end, so we're fine with that. And I'm really hoping that from this distance, I'm able to get this hand on here because I'm almost doing this not blind, but from a very far distance. Yeah, I might have to get up on this. Hang on. Let me just make sure, line this up. And this takes time, guys, especially if this is your first time. This is definitely not my first time, but again, I'm not positioned correctly because I want to get things on camera, but I may have to just move it out of the way to do it, just so we can move along. But I want you guys to also see, like, I think that's one of the misconceptions is that, you're going to fly through this. And that's definitely not the case, especially if you haven't done this before, right? Hands are a little shaky here. And I do mean mine hands, not the hour a minute hand. All right, I'm gonna have to back this out of focus a little bit and really get up on this. So I don't even know if I'm blocking the camera, but I can't see from behind the camera. So if I'm blocking your view right now, I do apologize, but bear with me. Mhm. I think we got it on there now. Now that I was positioned the right way. And make sure that when you're doing this, like you're right up on the movement. That's another thing that I do want to say. You guys are seeing this through a camera and everything else, but you should really be right up on it. You should be super close, as close as you can be. If you get a computer chair and you kind of bring the computer chair down, then that will help. You almost want to have like your elbows resting on the desk to give your hands more stability. And you'll see what I'm talking about if you look at a couple more watchmaker videos and stuff like that of how they're sitting on it. All right, so the hand is on there. I'm now going to check to make sure that the minute hand is not fouling the hour hand, right? And obviously, it's not going to foul the dial because it sits above it. But what you want to do is you want to make sure there's enough space between them for when they're swinging around that they're not fouling each other. Now, you don't want to test this by trying to turn it for obvious reasons, but you want to get very close. And again, Namoki does give you this tool here in order to take a closer look, and you'll actually see the spacing from the hour and the minute hand in between. And from what I eyeball here, I should be good to go. I maybe have pressed this down a little bit more than I would be comfortable with, but I don't think they're actually fouling, so I will give it a twist. And it is moving freely. And you want to test the hands not only just quickly, but you also want to move by them slowly because sometimes the minute hand will foul the hour hand ever so slightly, give it a little bit of a jolt. So you want to make sure that you twist it slow and make sure that there's no issues at all. And I can see right now that from that exact 6 o'clock, this is off. The hour hand's a little off. And again, I'm off because I'm so far away from it, but I will go back in and readjust that. But you know, the main thing is that you get the hands on there, and I want you guys to see. Like, listen, I've built 50 watches before, but you know, even I will make mistakes, and I have to remove the hands. Right? Okay, so that's another thing I want to show you guys. It turned over, I think, at what was that, like -3 which that's totally fine with me. I mean, obviously the hour hand, as I just said, is a little off, but the minute hand, oh no, that turned over really early. That's all right. We'll readjust, and depending on how what you want to tolerate and have tolerances for, that's probably going to be up to you. So now we're up to the second hand, okay, and we're going to stop after I get this second hand on because we're already into an hour of this, and then I'll do a part two to this. Um, and we'll kick it off from there, and then eventually I'll put it all together, and it'll be I did it again. It'll be a long form. Okay, so now this is where handling becomes ever so important, right? Now, the first thing is first. After testing these hands here, right, we're gonna push it in all the way in to make sure you're at the winding position. I always just give it a little wind because it's gratifying. And now that's going to let me know when this second hand has been offered to it correctly, right? Because after I press it down, it'll just start moving, and that'll tell me that it is on the correct position. Now, I'm just looking for, yeah, that should be this one. Okay, so the methodology is still the same. The actual method that I used to get the second hand, excuse me, let me get some water here. This throat's really scratchy. Okay, now this can take me probably a couple of seconds, no pun intended, or this could take me a couple of minutes. But I don't think it's going to take me longer than that, believe it or not. It actually probably will be harder for me to have gotten that minute hand on. So same thing, right? We're picking it up with the Rodico at the very end. When you press the Rodico down to pick this up, almost like zero pressure. Just let the Rodico grab it. And if you did it too lightly, then come back down and try it again. But the last thing you want to do is you don't want to press down with anything because this is a long second hand. And once you bend this, you're not bending it back. It's game over. Okay. So let's get this up here. Let me see if I can bring my camera down a little lower just so it's a little fair for me. Okay, am I in? Yeah, we're in shot, right? It's going to probably be a little blurry. So now, same methodology. I'm holding this at the end with the Rodico. Right side up would be, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a little piece, a little pin here that goes downward. This way you know you're pressing it the right way. Now, when I line this up with the hole here, right? When I press it down to get that second hand to go, unlike the hour and the minute hand that needed a little bit of pressure, and I do mean a little bit of pressure. When I mean a little bit of pressure, I probably mean you don't know if this is your first time doing Rodico. Okay, uh, where's that nail clipper? Where's that nail clipper? Okay, so you guys pretty much know the weight of a nail clipper, right? So when I'm pressing, I'm losing the second hand. When I'm pressing down on the hands, I'm using this much force, right? Just enough to tilt a a nail clipper. Yeah. When I'm doing the second hand and I'm pressing down, you saw how much I was rocking before. I was rocking like I was coming off of its full side. When I'm pushing down for the second hand, it's probably half that strength. Okay. So if you want to imagine pushing a balloon with this hand pusher off of a table, that's all you need. That's all the force you need. Anything more than that, you're 100% going to bend the second hand. So let's pick this back up again. We're going to barely use any force to do so. Line that up, and then just make sure that the second hand is kind of flat when you're trying to offer it. And that may pose a little bit of a trickiness here. Let me just reposition on the Rodico. And I usually have to get it at the very, very, very end of the second hand in order for me to start messing with it. And sometimes it'll bend over and it'll be a little difficult. But I feel like using Rodico is probably the safest bet, in my opinion, when trying to put the second hand on. Okay. Uh, no, that's not correct. That's not correct because that is gonna make me push down at an angle, and we can't have that. So the most important thing is to pick this up at the very end of the rodico, the very end of the second hand. Twist her over, get it to be straight. Oh boy. See, technical difficulties, guys. This happens. And the reason why this second hand is falling so much is because I'm really being super gentle and I'm not allowing the rodico, like I'm not allowing myself to apply a lot of pressure to it, if you will. Okay, so now we're going to attempt to aim this up. And it's almost like a feel, right? I can't see when this second hand is perfectly on there, to be honest with you. But at this point, it's for me, it's less eyeballing and it's more of just like a Jedi feel, to be honest with you. But you want to just try to line that up as best you can and then just tap the very center of the second hand. Let me make sure we're in view here. Here we go. And measuring that up right to the middle. And then I just do little baby taps. That's not going to go. Pick it up ever so gently. Now, this is the part of the watch build that's going to test your patience, and it's either going to frustrate you and you're going to try to force things, or you're going to take a break. I recommend taking a break if you find that you're getting frustrated. I've gotten frustrated many times and I start trying to force things, and that's just not how this works. Getting difficulties just positioning this radical, honestly, today. Let's do this. Yeah, usually it's not this hard. Hang on 1 second. Press that down. Okay, that's way better. And again, I'm like miles away from this compared to where I would normally and comfortably be, and the lighting is not ideal for me either. Trying to look at this tiny little pin go in, but that's all right. I'll give it my shot. Again, making sure that this tool is nice and straight as you press down too. But you know, the main thing is just you're not forcing anything. You're giving it taps. Eventually, you'll see it get received in, and my nose is literally like touching the phone screen as I do this. Because there's like no way I can actually see it. I'm kind of going for a feel here. But that's kind of fair, right? Because that's going to actually make this as difficult as it would be for somebody doing this for the first time. So that didn't go. So we're going to pick it up off the dial very gently. Sometimes you have to move it over to the side. Okay. I think it's going to go this time. I have a good feeling. Oh no. There we go. Let's see. Oof. very gently, very, very, very gently. I don't know if that even comes across for you guys about how much pressure I put, but I'm barely pushing down when I am pushing down. I just really cannot see from this distance. Yikes. Mm, okay. And there are somewhat techniques to get a second hand on. It's probably worth watching like a watchmaker video on how they do it. But at the end of the day, there is an actual way to aim this to get it on more seamlessly. I just have no chance of being able to do that from here, but that's okay. I'm just going by feel really. I'm watching to see how it reacts when I put it down on top and then trying to get it at the right angle to push down to counteract. Nope, thought I had it there. And this realistically will be what it looks like when you're doing this your first time, for sure. It's just going to be like over and over again. But at the very least, like you don't have to see me fully reset too much. I mean, I was before, but for the most part, when you're using the Rodico to hold the second hand, it prevents it from going all over the place. Or if you're using the tweezers, aside from the scratching, it's going to ping off of the pressure of the tweezers. So that could be annoying. That didn't go either. Okay. I'm going to have to try to get a little bit closer to eyeball this properly. But again, this is what you're going to deal with. It's going to flop around. It's going to fall off. You're going to have to re-pick it up. And you're going to grow a little bit more and a little bit more um, just frustrated. And then you're going to want to start, like, you're going to start shaking and you don't want to deal with it with more force because, that's just human nature. At that point, guys, get a sip of water, take a break, go back to it the next day even is something I would recommend, which is crazy for me to even like give you that advice because I get very fixated and I'm like, no, I have to get it done today. And I'll sigh and I'll get all mad, you know. But I've gone through, you know, getting to the point and trying to force it on, and it doesn't work that way. And then further than that, just so you know, if you try to force this tool down too hard, you can bend the actual pin that's on here, that's on the movement, and then you could never get a second hand on there. And I think it also damages the movement as well. So not only is it important to preserve your second hand from trying it over and over again, as you guys see, I'm having to reset and do it over and over again, but I haven't bent the second hand. I haven't bent the pin. I think it's called the pinion on the movement. You know, I'm still able to try and try and try again, and we're not getting another set of a second hand on this. I don't know if you guys have been asking me anything, and I'm almost gonna have to try and wrap this up. Get up in there. Don't worry about us. Yeah, I might have to block your guys' view just to get this. Or maybe I'll do this. Like maybe I'll angle the camera so you guys can see like the actual position that I would be in when I'm doing this, right? It's going to be a further shot that you're seeing, but when I'm modding, right? Move this tool. I got my chair down. This is how I actually am. Let me see if you guys can see me. Okay, it's facing this way. Oh, My wife just informed me that I do not have pants on. So yeah, we'll keep it at that angle. All right, so like my my arms are on top of the desk, right? I think you guys can see. Yeah, you can see the movement, so you'll see my face. So this is how I'm positioned. My arms and my chin is even on the desk, right? And I'm like this. Yeah, I'm up on it. I don't know if you guys can see this, but that's how close you have to get. And you can use the what you call it. You could use the little thing they give you to to magnify this, which is definitely I definitely recommend that for sure. Like I don't because I wear glasses already, obviously, so that's annoying. But let's see if we can get this before we close out. Yeah. Oh, I thought I had it for a second. Yeah, this is legitimately the process for this, guys. It takes time, and it doesn't matter how many watches you build, man. This can take. I've gotten this in like 2 seconds. I've gotten this in 2 minutes, and apparently on this live, I've probably been trying this now for 15 minutes, and that's all right. I don't think that's it. I'm not crazy about this tool, to be honest with you, but I do want to utilize what they gave me, and it's not terrible. It's just not. I guess it's not what I'm used to. When you get used to your tools, that becomes a thing. So my chin is literally on the desk. My shoulders, my arms are sitting on top, creating the most stability. And then it's just how much of it can you see? My lighting is still not of the best positioning that I want. Let's see if I can adjust. All right. Ay, ay, ay. If this was Grand Theft Auto, I'd be like, you just see wasted on the screen. Come on, buddy. You're making me look bad. And you know what? The funny thing is I wish I could say like, oh well, I'm doing this live, so my hand is shaking, and there's I'm not shaking at all. I'm just not getting this. I'll be 100%, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like that just goes to show you, as many times as I've done this secondhand before, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Still with the same technique, radical at the end. Oh man, this one's a toughie. And that's a thing too. One thing that I've noticed about different second hands is that some of them, even the hour and the minute hand too, some are harder than others. Believe it or not, depending on the style, maybe the manufacturing. Which on this Namoki brand, I definitely am confident that it's just me. But as I'm trying to get this, I'll share that with you guys. Like from other places, like there have been second hands that spit back out. Like it'll get on there, it'll start turning, and then it just pops out. But this is the process, man. This is not even. I'm not even getting close. We may have to stop this before I even get the second hand. if there's anybody even still with me, they're like, man, this guy ain't the GOAT. Yeah, this is how it is. So when you guys are doing this, if you're doing this for the first time, try to remember, man, it's a difficult thing to do. That's it. It's not anything else. Like it almost makes you earn that custom mod. It makes you earn that custom build, right? Something for you to be that much proud of because you knew that it didn't take you 15 seconds to put a watch together. And it's crazy because you could be on the second hand for like 2 seconds. Your first try, boom, it goes right in, no problem. And then you can have situations like this, man, where it's not playing fair. Sheesh. I think I know why people don't do this live. you know. I'm gonna try this side. Oh man, thought I had her. Yeah, man, we may have to just I'm gonna try like one or two more tries, and then we may have to just come back to this. 'Cause I may have to bust out the goggles next time we try this. And I'll be honest with you guys. To be fair, I also, like I said, I use my pad here, so it'll bring it up even more closer, which we'll go ahead and try to do that. But I was trying not to use anything that wasn't included in the packaging. But let's see if that makes a difference before we close out. Nah, I don't think so today, sir. Round one of the second hand is going to go to the second hand, not to Skylar Santana. For sure defeated today. And I'm shocked. 'Cause it never really takes this long for me. But of course, when you go live, this is how it is. And I don't know, man. Maybe I'll even start off. I'll start off next time with the second hand on there. That's probably smart. Yeah, she's not going. Not today, sir. All right, guys, we're gonna stop there. We'll pick things up when I'm able to come back on here and start off there. So the second hand, it is what it is. Round one has been defeated. We'll pick it up off of there. We got the hour, we got the minute hand. I walked you guys all of the things to look out for as we did this, which that really was the purpose of it. Less it's less about me completing the mod. You know what I mean? Like really quickly, it's more about me walking you guys through some of the things that I've run into as I've done mods before. So we'll pick things up off of there. I'll probably just get the second hand off camera and then walk you through the process of switching out the stem, the crown, as I said before, they already have it cut, so it's pretty nice. It's going to be fast. The only thing I didn't see included was something to glue it onto, which you'll need hypo cement or you'll need like I think it's called grip tight or something like that. And then we'll get everything cased up. We'll get everything put together, and that'll be pretty much it. The bulk of it, the biggest part of it is where we got stopped, which is the second hand onto the movement. And I'm kind of glad that that happened because that realistically will happen to you if you're doing this for your first time. And it's okay if you have to stop and come back to this the next day, like we will do on this live. So, again, put the second hand away, secure it. Another thing I would recommend is if you're doing it for another day, just close that movement out, make sure that that's safe, and that's pretty much it, man. Keep dust away and keep your work zone controlled until you're able to actually case up the movement and going on. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and taking this ride. It's been a long time that we were on here, so I appreciate everybody for sticking it out with me. We'll pick things up. I'll probably post up the next time I'm going to do this so you can see it prior, and it'll be part two of doing the watch build. Anyway, guys, just remember that it all started with a watch. No matter where your watch collection journey takes you, no matter how you decide to collect, you guys are all welcome on this channel and in this community, as you should be. Have a good night, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.